Indeed, an evidently difficult time in the nation's history, as strikes always are, with many sectors affected: education, health, air travel, you name it. But indeed, negotiations must hold, and indeed they are continuing. So we're staying with the nationwide strike and how negotiations are going and how it affects you. So as we start off this conversation, joining us to help us understand what the issues are is Comrade Emmanuel Jaja. He's the first deputy president of ATSSAN. ATSSAN is the Association of Air Travel Transport Services Senior Staff Association of Nigeria. Comrade, you're welcome to the program.
Good morning.
First of all, of course, I would like to feel your pulse as far as the commitment of ATSSAN to the strike is concerned, but also, how are you receiving news about how negotiations are going with the federal government, between Labour, the federal government, and the others in the tripartite committee?
Thank you very much. Well, the negotiation is going on at the moment, even as of yesterday, but we shouldn't have gotten to this level, because this committee was set up since January, and we're in the month of June. So if the government are sincere, by now would have wrapped it up. So I don't know why they wait till this last minute. And I'm a labor man. Usually strike is not an option for us. We are not happy. Like yesterday, the whole place was shut down. Come to the airport, people who are going in their normal businesses, they were shut down, they couldn't go, people on medical and all sort of things. I mean, it doesn't speak well as a nation. So we are not happy doing it, but we have been pushed to the wall and we have no option than to react. Besides, over the time, you know, a lot of people have been saying Labour has compromised. They just call every time they make noise. So they are seeing Labour as toothless bulldog. So for once, let us just do it. We're not happy doing it, but we have no option.
But with the federal government now saying that negotiations will go on for the next few days, you know, for them to commit to some amount above 60,000 naira. Does it demonstrate some form of a commitment from the federal government, and does it give hope to Labour?
Well, the president intervened and said he's ready. If you look at the commitment, he says he's ready to pay more than 60,000. The question is, when the government want to buy SUVs, how long does it take them to get approval? Where did they get the money? Before we realize it's there. If anything, would government want to do anything, how do they raise the money? So we are watching. We don't want the country to be in a collapse system. That was why our principal in Abuja, they have to, you know, enter into an agreement. But we are calling on the National Executive Council of the two labor centers, the TUC and the NLC, by 9 a.m. this morning. And because even our principal, they don't have too much power. It is only the National Executive Council that can give them the authority to see where we go from there. So at the moment, we'll see what happens from there.
So basically, you have a meeting today by 9 a.m.?
Absolutely. Because
Mr. Joe Ajero said I was going to get back to organs of labor immediately. A lot of people thought it was going to be yesterday, and then the strike will be called off yesterday, but the meeting will happen 9 a.m. today, and we'll get the outcome of it. So stay with us, we'll give you more updates on that. But what we saw playing out at the airports yesterday was sad to see, really. Gates shut, people who had, as you said, some business, some medical, different reasons for traveling. And you know, air travel these times is not the cheapest, it's very expensive. So for someone to opt for air travel, it means that it's obviously something important. But as you said, a lot of people could not fly. And is that still the case today?
At the moment, I think the gate is still locked. Before the commencement of the strike, the union has written to all the airlines, informing them. So where things are working well, they're supposed to have informed their passengers that due to XYZ, there will be no flight this morning or going forward till further notice. They're supposed to inform their passengers.
So nobody's flying, and I understand you're going to the international wing today. Is that correct? So would there be international flights today as well?
Well, as at the time, as at late Sunday, when we took decision to embark on this strike, we take the cognizance that some aircraft are already airborne coming from outside the country. So we can't stop them not to land because it's an international thing. You know, there's a bilateral agreement, so we can't stop them. So what we said is we'll allow all the international flights to land and the passengers will disembark and, you know, find their levels. but boarding may be a little bit difficult. We plan to go to international today. We're also considering that it is not an easy thing to do to stop an international flight, because some of them may be going for medical and some of them will be going for one reason or the other. So we have taken all this into consideration. But luckily, with the meeting they held yesterday, we are watching till 9 o'clock and see what comes of.
I just want to see if we can put a cost to it. I remember in 2012, during that Occupy Nigeria strike, after the 8-day strike, the Bureau of Statistics put out figures as to how much Nigeria lost in the 8-day strike. That was over 200 billion naira. If you do the math, that's about 25 billion naira daily in 2012. The price of petrol then was below 100. In fact, the strike was because government was trying to push it above 100. Naira to dollar was just less than 200 in 2012. So do the math in terms of inflation, forex, the price of petrol today, just how much would have been lost yesterday. In terms for the aviation sector particularly, do you have a sense, just so that we can paint the picture properly and help us know what we're losing if this thing lingers, do you have a sense of just how much was lost? I imagine an average ticket will be, what, 100,000 plus naira or thereabouts. Do you have a sense of how much people lost yesterday?
Well, the government is aware that whenever there is strike, that there will be one lost hour, and so many things people will lose, both sides. The government has lose, the people that are running the airlines, the airline operators, they lose. People going on their own business, they also lose. So the government is aware, and that was why it is not always good for labor to go on strike. And in the course of our training, we are told that strike is the last option. And that was why we have been making sure that this strike doesn't come. Like I said, I'm also in Nigeria. I feel the pain. It took me time to address some passengers yesterday because I feel their pain. And I pleaded to them that it is not intentional. We didn't just get up one day and say, we want to shut down. Of what use is it for labor? We are part and parcel of this country. But when the government is adamant in some of the things they're supposed to do, it pushes us to the wall. And labor is the only mouthpiece of an ordinary man on the street. That was why I know that a lot of things has gone down yesterday, but I think the early they tried to sort it out, the better. Because if you look at like you said, the high cost of inflation today, the dollar rate, exchange rate, and all sort of things has made life so difficult for an ordinary man. So it's pretty difficult. So I think the government should come up with something, so that the labor will also look at it and see where we go from there.
And speaking of what the government is coming up with, government has in fact said that they have a package, to cushion the current economic hardship as a result of the minimum wage. Government has talked about the economic package for big manufacturing businesses and nano businesses, distribution of 25,000 naira each, the resumption of that program for 25 million Nigerians. The government has also talked about quite a number of other measures that I cannot immediately remember now. How reassuring is that for organized labor, and indeed, especially federal workers who are also benefiting from the wage award that government has also implemented ahead of these negotiations? How reassuring is this, and how honest is it also? Because that's also a very critical question, because people are asking, those who are benefiting from the social investment program, where are they? So,
well, talk is cheap. Keep on saying we will do this, we will do this. Implementation is where the problem lies. And in this country, I have seen a lot of things that government has said, we want to do this, we want to do this, we want to do that, and it never come to pass. Because, like I said from my prologue, if the government had been sincere when they tell you they want to do this and they do it, I don't think there will be any problem. Because we'll say, okay, after all, they promised this. Giving palliative 25,000, whatever, after some time you withdraw, does it solve any problem? The answer is no. We are going back to status quo. We are discussing now, look at the prices of even ordinary gari, that is common granite. The other day I was passing along the road, a bottle of granite is almost 3,000 naira in Nigeria. Are we importing it? The answer is no. So you see that the very time that the government keep giving all these promises, and they renege from the promise, it affects us. And when it affects labor, it affects our family. Every Nigerian worker has about 10 or 12 people behind him. The wife is there, the children is there. Now, let me even come with the 60,000 they're talking. What can 60,000 do at the moment with this economic crisis? With a man, with a wife and 2 children. I don't even want to go with normal, a man and a wife and 4 children. What can 60,000 do? He will buy fuel. Maybe he has a better price, my neighbor generator. How much is fuel now? He goes to market to buy a cup of gari. I'm not even talking about rice. A cup of gari, how much is it? So when you put all these things vis-a-vis, you see that the ordinary man suffers most. My question is, the National Assembly, all these people, do they go to market? That's my question. I want to find out. Right. And if they go to market, how do they feel?
That is absolutely a valid question, and except they don't stay here, imagine they maybe go to the market by proxy. So it's important to drive this point home. But just by the way, some would ask, why would a minimum wage earner have 4 children? If you know that you're not earning as you ought to, why have 4 children? Now that is by the way. I don't know if you're factoring that in, that an average minimum wage earner should not have 4 children.
Well, I don't know how old you are, but this is what we met, that an average Nigerian worker, you are supposed to have a wife and 4 children. That's what the government has been taking care of all along. But you know, event has overtaken that now, because if you have a minimum wage of 30,000 and 60,000 and you want to have 4 children, to God be the glory. I wish he or she luck. I wish him luck.
Well, away from that part of the conversation now, let's look at the amount. As a Labour leader, I wonder if you're aware of the proposition that perhaps Labour is saying that if government can raise the bar a little bit to 100,000 naira, then they would be willing. Would that not be too much of a huge compromise as against what they're publicly, proclaiming to stand for, which is 497,000 naira?
Well, if you look at from the beginning, Labour analyze where they get to 615. And during the course of negotiation, you see them coming down till we get to 4, where we are at the moment. Now, what the Labour is asking government, with the 60,000 you are proposing, tell us what it is, how you arrive at 60,000. That's what we want to know. And as at this moment, nobody has been able to give us the answer.
But is it true that Labour is willing to compromise and accept 100,000 naira?
Nobody, we don't know whether it's 100,000. They said they're coming up with something, so we're waiting. We're waiting to see. And like I said, if the president has said that he's ready to pay more than 60,000, so we are watching to see what will come out of it.
So there are signals that we're getting from the government. I don't know how Labour is interpreting those signals, because I was watching them in the room yesterday with the SGF. On one hand, Labour said, we'll give you a deadline to do the needful. They did not do the needful in Labour's view. The next thing that happened was that the AGF released a statement citing a lot of laws, including the one that is in pendency that has not been put aside in terms of the interim injunction in 2023. On the other hand, the police IGP also said, government has said this is illegal, abide by the rule of law. Next moment, we saw the Minister of Information saying, appealing to the labor unions, as well as the Minister of State for Labour. So does Labour see what is going on from the government end as conflicting signal? And how do you perceive that to affect negotiations going forward?
Over the years, when you talk about illegality, over the years, we all are Nigerians. We've been privileged to see sometimes when courts will issue some interim injunction to government and whatever, and government renege. So I don't know what is illegality in this business. As long as I'm concerned, as long as we know, the Labour have the right, when they get to a certain stage, they have the right to protest. They have the right to go on strike. It's not Nigerian Labour, this is ILO, International Labour Organization. We have the right to do that. So issue of whether it's illegal or not legal, I think when you go to that stage, the legal luminary will handle that.
So there's a question on my mind I need to put across to you. I can almost guarantee, and a lot of Nigerians who have watched trends can guarantee, based on the 30,000 naira minimum wage that was agreed, the last one, some state governments are not paying. Till tomorrow, they're not paying. So whatever the outcome of this meeting will be, whether it's 100, 80, 150, whatever, based on trend, we can guarantee that some state government will still not be able to pay or not be willing to pay. So are we not going to be running through that cycle again?
The answer is they are not willing to pay. There is no state government in Nigeria that cannot pay. Have you heard that any state governor did not get his salary? Have you heard it before? I'm just asking. Have you heard any state governor that has never gotten salary? It's just they are not willing. And you know this greed thing that is a Nigerian thing. They don't want to pay.
So the reason I asked that question, I have a bit of data off the cuff. Bayelsa, for instance, is over 90% dependent on federal allocation. Benue, the biggest money coming to Benue State as at the last count, comes from FAC and AIDS. Their IGR is abysmal in the numbers. Maybe it has improved. We can go across the country to see that without FAC, most of these state government cannot pay. So, which is why I'm going to ask again, are you seeing this possibility at all?
If the government is sincere, both from the federal and state, they can be able to pay. Now, the question I ask again, when it is time for the federal government to buy SUVs, I heard that one is 160 million. How did they raise the money? Where did the money come from? And how long did they take the negotiation? Even when the Nigerian people are panicking, why must you buy this car for one person? Why must you spend this money? Before we realize it has taken effect. So why is it when it comes to the one that concerns an ordinary man, it's become difficult? Don't you think that something is fishy?
Well, let's just, for the benefit of Nigerians, take a look at what was signed yesterday. Not as definitive as you'll expect, but here's the agreement that was reached between government and labor. There you go. So it essentially says that, one, the president is committed to a national minimum wage that is higher than 60,000 naira. The tripartite committee will meet every day. Labor in deference to the high esteem of the president and the rest in above undertakes to convene what it calls a meeting of its organs immediately, which will happen by 9 a.m. today. We understand to consider this commitment. No worker will be victimized as a result of industrial action. And this is where the rubber meets the road, and Jeffrey already talked about. By the way, that statement, I should say, was signed for the federal government by the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, the Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Honorable Onyeji Ocha, and for organized labor, the President of the NLC, Joe Ajero, TUC, Festus Osifo. People have asked, why didn't the representative of state government, or why didn't someone say for state government, put pen to paper? So we have other parties that are meant to be in this negotiation, state and the private sector. Some have said private sector, some of them, majority of them pay above the minimum wage. You can either confirm or deny that, particularly for your sector. But what is expected for the private sector as well in all of this?
Well, the private sectors, to the best of my knowledge, some of them pay above minimum wage. That's not an issue. But when this kind of thing happens, what we expect is consequential adjustment to their pay for them to add something. Okay, on the issue of states, the two labor centers, the Nigerian Labor Congress and the Trade Union Congress, in all the 36 states, we have what we call state councils. So the TUC presidents and NLC president supersede. In this meeting that is coming up by 9 o'clock, which is National Executive Council, all the state council is involved in the meeting. So they will be briefed. They will be briefed. So the state council, as long as labor is concerned, is captured in this signing and this because we gave them the mandate for the meeting to sign on behalf of labor, and we signed that so that we move Nigeria forward. To tell you that we are not greedy. If you see the negotiation, you can see that labor is moving. To tell you that negotiation is not sacrosanct. We keep on moving.
So if the government offers 70,000 naira, which is above the 60,000 naira, which in fact, let me say 65,000 naira, because they just said we'll do above 60. Will this strike continue?
Let's get there, because like I said, talk is cheap. What we want, explanation we want that we have not gotten even up till this time, even at the rate of 60,000. how did you arrive at that? 70,000, how did you arrive at that? We want to see what will happen.
Back to Jeffrey's point, which is critical about states' ability or inability to pay. But more important than that is the position of the state labor leaders to be able to prevail upon the state governors to pay. From the standpoint of a labor leader, what can you say about the efficacy of the leadership of the state chapters of the congresses to hold subnationals to account to pay the minimum wage?
They have the mandate to do that from the labor center. It is when the state fails, over the time you can hear that there are some states that labor picketed because they were unable to pay 30,000 in the past. You have heard that severally. So the state council have the right to negotiate or to tell the government of the state that this is what has been signed, starting from the level point of view, from the federal point of view down to state. So the labor council, state labor councils have the right to.
But they've been unable to execute this mandate even for 30,000 minimum wage. So can we expect anything from them for anything above 30,000 naira? And you know, this is also against the backdrop of reports that state Congress chairmen have been known to compromise, or if not, being held at the chokehold of the state governors.
Well, you know, it's usually said that the state council have been compromised, but the thing is, I don't know if there's any evidence to that, but to the best of my knowledge, like I said, in this National Executive Council meeting coming, all the state council will be involved, because we're going to do the Zoom meeting. They'll be involved. We ask questions, and usually when we do our National Executive Council, all states bring their reports. And it is when they bring the report that the national will also say which state is paying this, which state is not paying that. Issue of compromise by state, I cannot stand here and say I know anything about that.
Or what about the issue of being held at the chokehold of governors?
Well, I do not know. Sincerely, I will stop what I know.
So at the end of the day, let's look at a bit of scenario planning.
Go ahead.
So I'm sure that Labour has something on their mind. Let's, for the benefit of an argument, government refused to shift ground despite their agreement. Then what?
If the government refused to shift ground, what that means is they want the status quo to remain. And what is the status quo? To still keep this country in darkness, to still keep this country in this kind of quagmire we find ourselves now. And I think that the government, they are part and parcel of Nigerians. They saw what happened yesterday. Like I said, it is not the will of Labour to shut down the economy. What do we gain? The government has lost millions yesterday. So also private people have also lost. So it is not the will of Labour to shut down. But the very moment they do the needful, we move. We call it negotiation. And what we sent was proposal. Proposal is supposed to be coming from both sides. You give me your own, I give you mine. So at the time, we must get to a point that each party will say, okay, if we have gotten to this point, let us see how we move forward. It's negotiation.
Indeed, Comrade Jaja, this is not the not the best time to be a Labour leader, and it's a Herculean task that is before the state and the national Labour leaders. And we wish you all of the best as you continue with these negotiations towards economic liberation, or the best form of it for Nigerian workers. I want to thank you very much. Comrade Jaja Emmanuel is the first National Deputy President, Air Transport Services Senior Staff Association of Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time on the program.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And we're staying with this matter because it's that important, and we'll continue with it as we examine the legal implications of Labour's action or federal government's action or inaction. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break.